Teen girl gives birth to a child with animal features. How did this happen? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Lily sat on the edge of her bed, her hands resting gently on her swollen belly. The soft hum of the ceiling fan above her barely drowned out the whispers that had become a constant in her life. In a town as small as Riverview, secrets didn't last long, and a pregnant teenager was as juicy a topic as they came. Lily had learned to tune out the stares, the hushed gossip in the school hallways, and the judgmental glances at the grocery store. But lately, there was something even more unsettling than the town's prying eyes. Her pregnancy had been anything but ordinary. What had started as typical symptoms, nausea, cravings, fatigue, soon became different. Her cravings were odd: raw vegetables, leafy greens, and once, she had found herself gnawing on an apple with an intensity that surprised even her. Then there were the movements inside her belly. They were not like the gentle kicks she had heard other pregnant women describe. These were sharp, quick, almost deliberate, as if the baby inside her was trying to communicate. Her mother, Karen, was beside herself with worry. "Lily, you need to tell the doctor everything," she insisted during every appointment. "They can't help you if they don't know what's going on." But Lily had held back, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "It's probably nothing," she would say with a shrug, even as anxiety gnawed at her. What if it wasn't nothing? What if something was wrong with her baby? Dr. Matthews, the town's obstetrician, was equally baffled. During her ultrasounds, the baby's movements were unusually fast, almost difficult to track. The doctor had once joked, "You've got a little gymnast in there," but his uneasy expression afterward told Lily that he wasn't entirely confident. At her latest appointment, Dr. Matthews had spent an unusually long time staring at the screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. Well, everything looks fine, structurally speaking," he said, choosing his words carefully. "But there's some unusual activity. It's probably nothing to worry about." Lily didn't press him, but as she left the clinic, she caught him exchanging a look with the nurse, a look that said there was more he wasn't telling her. The morning of her due date arrived with a quiet tension that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Karen fussed around the house, checking and rechecking Lily's hospital bag. "Do you have your charger? Extra socks? What about?" "Mom," Lily interrupted, her voice steady but tired. "It's fine. I have everything." Karen sighed, her worry evident in the way she wrung her hands. "I just want everything to go smoothly." "You've had such a unique pregnancy." Lily forced a smile. "It'll be fine. I promise." But deep down, she wasn't so sure. The hospital room was sterile and cold, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on the walls. Nurses bustled in and out, preparing for the delivery, while Karen sat nervously in the corner, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Lily lay on the bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The contractions were coming fast now, each one stronger than the last. Dr. Matthews entered the room, his expression professional but tight. "How are we doing, Lily?" he asked, his voice calm. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, trying to mask her fear with a weak laugh. As the delivery progressed, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The nurses exchanged glances, their movements more hurried than before. Dr. Matthews's brow furrowed as he instructed Lily to push. "You're doing great," he said, though his voice lacked the usual reassurance. Lily gritted her teeth, the pain unbearable. With one final push, she felt the release and collapsed back onto the bed, gasping for air. For a moment, the room was silent. And then came the cry, not a typical newborn's wail, but something softer, higher-pitched, almost animalic. Karen's gasp broke the silence. What is that?" Dr. Matthews froze, his hands trembling as he held the baby. The nurses stared, their faces a mix of shock and confusion. Lily struggled to sit up, her vision blurred from exhaustion. Is my baby okay?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. Dr. Matthews didn't respond immediately. He was staring down at the newborn in his hands, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lily, your baby is unique?" He stepped closer, and as Lily's eyes focused on the bundle in his arms, her breath caught in her throat. The baby was covered in soft, downy fur, the color of golden wheat. Its ears were long and pointed, twitching slightly as it moved. Tiny paws peeked out from the blanket, complete with delicate, pink pads. Despite its unusual features, its face was unmistakably human, with wide, curious eyes and a small, button nose. Lily stared, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. That's my baby," she whispered. Dr. Matthews nodded. "Yes. It's a boy." Karen clapped a hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "What? How is this possible?" The room erupted into chaos as the nurses began whispering among themselves, some stepping back as if afraid to get too close. But Lily didn't hear any of it. Her focus was entirely on the baby in her arms. "Hi, little guy," she said softly, her voice trembling. The baby, her baby, stared back at her, its ears twitching as if in response. Despite its appearance, all Lily felt was an overwhelming sense of love and protection. Karen stepped closer, her hands shaking. "Lily, what are we going to do?" "We're going to love him," Lily replied firmly, tears streaming down her face. "He's perfect." The news spread through Riverview like wildfire. By the time Lily and her baby, whom she had named Oliver, were discharged from the hospital, the entire town was buzzing with rumors. Whispers of mutant baby and freak accident filled the air, and reporters from local news outlets had begun circling like vultures. Lily shielded Oliver from the prying eyes as best she could, but the stares were impossible to avoid. Every trip to the grocery store, every walk through the park, became an ordeal. People either gawked openly or whispered behind their hands, their curiosity tinged with fear and judgment. Karen tried to shield her daughter and grandson from the worst of it, but even she couldn't escape the whispers. "It's not natural," she overheard a neighbor say one afternoon. "That girl must have done something wrong." Lily tried to ignore the gossip, but it weighed heavily on her. She had always been a quiet, introverted girl who avoided attention. Now, she was the center of a controversy she hadn't asked for. Despite the chaos, Lily's love for Oliver only grew stronger. She marveled at his uniqueness, the way his ears perked up when he heard her voice, the soft fur that felt like velvet under her fingers, the tiny paws that clutched her hand with surprising strength. "He's just a baby," Lily told Karen one evening as they sat on the couch, Oliver nestled in Lily's arms. "He didn't ask to be born like this. He deserves love, just like any other child." Karen nodded, though her eyes were filled with worry. "I know, sweetheart. But the world isn't always kind to those who are different." "I'll protect him," Lily said firmly. "No matter what." As the days turned into weeks, Lily began to notice other peculiarities about Oliver. He was unusually alert for a newborn, his eyes following her every movement with an intensity that was almost unsettling. He rarely cried, but when he did, the sound was soft and melodic, more like a coo than a wail. One night, as Lily rocked him to sleep, she noticed his ears twitching toward the faintest sounds, the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of leaves outside the window. It was as if he could hear things she couldn't. "You're special, aren't you?" she whispered, kissing the top of his head. Oliver's tiny paw clutched her finger, and for a moment, all the fear and uncertainty melted away. The days after Lily and Oliver returned home were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges. The town's fascination with Oliver only seemed to grow, and the whispers turned into murmurs of curiosity, fear, and even disdain. Everywhere Lily went, she could feel the weight of their stares, their judgment pressing down on her like an invisible cloud. Karen, ever the protective mother, tried to shield Lily and Oliver from the worst of it. "You don't have to go out," she said one afternoon as she caught Lily preparing to take Oliver for a walk. "Let me run errands for you." But Lily shook her head. "Mom, we can't hide forever. People will talk no matter what we do. I won't let their ignorance keep us trapped." Karen hesitated, her worry etched into the lines of her face, but she relented. "Just be careful." As Lily pushed Oliver's stroller through the park, she could feel the eyes of other parents on her. Some glanced quickly and looked away, while others openly stared, whispering among themselves. One mother pulled her child closer as they passed, her expression a mixture of confusion and fear. Lily kept her head high, determined not to let their reactions affect her. She stopped under a large oak tree and sat on a bench, lifting Oliver from the stroller and cradling him in her arms. His soft fur brushed against her skin, and he looked up at her with wide, curious eyes. In those moments, it was easy to forget the world's judgment. "Hey there, little one," she whispered, running her fingers gently over his tiny paw. "You don't care what they think, do you? You're perfect just the way you are." Oliver cooed in response, his ears twitching at the sound of her voice. Lily smiled, her heart swelling with love. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she would face them head-on for her son. But the challenges came sooner than she expected. One evening, as Lily was feeding Oliver, there was a knock at the door. Karen opened it to find two reporters standing on the porch, their cameras slung over their shoulders and notepads in hand. "Mrs. Clark," one of them began, his tone overly polite. "We're from the Riverview Gazette. We've been hearing some unusual stories about your family, and we'd love to speak with you and your daughter." Karen's expression hardened. "No comment," she said firmly, starting to close the door. "Wait," the second reporter said, stepping forward. "We're not here to cause trouble. We just want to understand. People are curious, and you have the chance to tell your side of the story." Karen hesitated, but Lily appeared behind her, holding Oliver in her arms. "It's okay, Mom," she said softly. "I'll talk to them." Karen looked at her daughter, concern etched on her face, but she stepped aside to let the reporters in. The interview was tense. The reporters asked a barrage of questions, their curiosity barely masked by a veneer of professionalism. "When did you realize something was different about your baby? What do the doctors say about his condition? Do you think this is some kind of mutation? Or something supernatural?" Lily answered their questions as calmly as she could, though her patience wore thin with each passing minute. "Oliver is my son," she said firmly. "He's healthy, he's happy, and that's all that matters." The reporters exchanged glances, clearly unsatisfied with her answers. "But surely you must be curious," one of them pressed. "Don't you want to know why he's the way he is?" Lily tightened her grip on Oliver, who was nestled against her chest, his tiny paw clutching her shirt. "Of course I do," she said. "But my priority is loving and protecting him, not satisfying your curiosity." The reporters left shortly after, their notepads filled with notes and their cameras unused. As the door closed behind them, Karen turned to Lily, her expression a mix of pride and worry. "You handled that well," she said. "But I don't think this is the last we'll hear from them." "I know," Lily replied, her voice tired but resolute. "But I won't let them treat Oliver like he's some kind of spectacle." As the days turned into weeks, Lily began to notice more and more peculiarities about Oliver. His senses were incredibly sharp. He could hear the faintest sounds and seemed to react to smells long before she noticed them. Once, as they sat in the living room, Oliver's ears perked up, and he turned his head toward the door moments before Karen entered, holding a tray of snacks. "You're like a little radar, aren't you?" Lily said with a laugh, stroking his fur. Oliver cooed in response, his ears twitching. But it wasn't just his heightened senses that set him apart. Oliver also seemed to be unusually intelligent for his age. At just 3 months old, he could already respond to simple cues, turning his head when Lily called his name or reaching for objects she held out to him. His movements were deliberate, almost calculated, as if he understood more than he let on. Lily couldn't help but marvel at her son's uniqueness. "You're special, Ollie," she whispered one night as she rocked him to sleep. "I don't care what anyone else thinks. You're perfect to me." One day, as Lily was shopping for groceries, she noticed a woman staring at her from across the produce aisle. The woman looked vaguely familiar, but Lily couldn't place her. She had short, dark hair and wore a sleek blazer that seemed out of place in their small-town store. "Excuse me," the woman said, approaching Lily with a warm smile. "You're Lily Clark, aren't you?" Lily tensed, her grip on the stroller tightening. "Yes. Can I help you?" The woman extended a hand. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Hart. I'm a researcher specializing in genetic anomalies, and I've heard about your son." Lily hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "I'm not interested in making Oliver a lab experiment," she said firmly. Dr. Hart's smile didn't waver. I understand your concern, and I want to assure you that's not my intention. I simply want to help. If you're willing, I'd like to run some tests, not invasive ones, just to better understand what makes Oliver so unique. Lily frowned, her protective instincts kicking in. But, so you can turn him into a case study? No, Dr. Hart said gently. So I can offer you answers. I imagine you've had a lot of questions about why this happened. I might be able to help you find those answers. Lily's mind raced. Part of her wanted to reject the offer outright, to shield Oliver from any further scrutiny. But another part of her, the part that had spent sleepless nights wondering about the mystery of her son's condition, was tempted. I'll think about it, she said finally. Dr. Hart nodded, handing Lily a business card. Take your time. My contact information is there if you decide to reach out. That evening, Lily told Karen about her encounter with Dr. Hart. Her mother listened carefully, her brow furrowed in thought. What do you think? Lily asked. Should I trust her? Karen sighed. I don't know, sweetheart. She seems genuine, but we don't know her or her intentions. At the same time, maybe she can give you the answers you've been looking for. Lily looked down at Oliver, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. I just want to do what's best for him, she said softly. I don't want him to grow up feeling like he's some kind of freak. Karen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. You'll make the right decision, Lily. You've always put Oliver first, and that's what matters. Lily sat at the kitchen table that evening, staring at the business card Dr. Hart had given her. The card was simple, her name, title, and contact information printed in clean, professional lettering. It gave no indication of the woman's true intentions, and that was what made Lily hesitate. Could she trust Dr. Hart? Would reaching out to her bring the answers Lily so desperately wanted, or would it open a door to more scrutiny and judgment? Karen walked in carrying a mug of tea. She placed it in front of Lily and sat down across from her. You've been staring at that card for hours, she said gently. What's holding you back? I don't know, Lily admitted. I guess I'm scared. What if she just wants to treat Oliver like an experiment? I don't want him to grow up feeling like he's different in a bad way. Karen reached out and placed a hand on Lily's. I understand, sweetheart. But maybe she really does want to help. If there's even a chance she can give you answers, isn't it worth considering? Lily sighed, her gaze falling to the card once more. Maybe, she said softly. But I need to know more about her before I make any decisions. The next morning, Lily decided to do some research. She sat down at her computer and typed Dr. Evelyn Hart, genetic researcher, into the search bar. Dozens of results popped up, and Lily began clicking through them, reading articles, interviews, and reviews. Dr. Hart's credentials were impressive. She had a PhD in genetics from a prestigious university and had spent the past decade researching rare genetic conditions. Her work had been praised for its compassionate approach, and she was known for advocating for the dignity and well-being of her subjects. Still, Lily couldn't shake her skepticism. It was one thing to read glowing reviews online. It was another to trust someone with her son's future. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from her best friend, Emma. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? Lily hesitated before replying. Yeah, just busy with Oliver. Can we talk? I need some advice. Emma's response was immediate. Of course. Come over whenever you want. Later that afternoon, Lily drove to Emma's house, Oliver bundled up in his car seat. Emma greeted them at the door with her usual warmth, scooping Oliver up and cooing at him as soon as Lily stepped inside. He gets cuter every time I see him, Emma said, nuzzling her nose against Oliver's soft fur. Thanks, Lily said with a small smile. I needed to get out of the house. Emma glanced at her friend, her expression softening. What's going on? Lily took a deep breath and explained everything. Dr. Hart's visit, the offer to run tests, and her own doubts and fears. Emma listened intently, nodding as Lily spoke. I can see why you're hesitant, Emma said when Lily finished. But it sounds like Dr. Hart has a good reputation. And if she can help you understand why Oliver is the way he is, that might be worth it. But what if it backfires? Lily asked, her voice trembling. What if she uses Oliver to make a name for herself? What if it just makes things worse? Emma reached out and squeezed Lily's hand. "You're a great mom, Lily. Whatever you decide, I know you'll do what's best for Oliver. Just trust your instincts." After much deliberation, Lily decided to call Dr. Hart. The phone rang twice before the researcher answered. "Dr. Hart speaking." "Hi, this is Lily Clark," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We met at the grocery store." "Lily," Dr. Hart said warmly. "I'm glad you called. Have you had a chance to think about my offer?" "Yes," Lily replied. "But I have some questions first. If we do this, what exactly would the tests involve? And how do I know I can trust you?" Dr. Hart's tone remained calm and reassuring. "I understand your concerns, and I appreciate you asking. The tests would be non-invasive, things like DNA analysis, metabolic screening, and sensory evaluations. My goal isn't to exploit your son but to better understand his condition so I can provide you with answers and support." Lily hesitated. "And what happens after? What if you find something unusual?" "Whatever we find, you'll be in control," Dr. Hart said firmly. "I won't share any information without your consent, and I'll respect whatever boundaries you set." Lily took a deep breath. "But let's do it." A week later, Lily and Oliver arrived at Dr. Hart's research facility. The building was sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the small-town hospital where Oliver had been born. Lily's nerves returned as she walked through the glass doors, holding Oliver close to her chest. Dr. Hart greeted them in the lobby, her smile warm and genuine. "Thank you for coming, Lily," she said. "And hello to you, Oliver." Oliver stared at Dr. Hart with wide, curious eyes, his ears twitching slightly. Lily couldn't help but smile at her son's reaction. "He's always so alert," she said. "It's like he understands everything." "That's fascinating," Dr. Hart replied. "Let's get started, shall we?" The tests were surprisingly straightforward. Dr. Hart and her team collected a small saliva sample from Oliver, observed his reactions to various sounds and scents, and conducted a series of simple sensory tests. Throughout it all, Lily stayed by Oliver's side, offering comfort and reassurance. "He's incredibly responsive," one of the researchers remarked. "His sensory awareness is far beyond what we'd expect for his age." Lily felt a surge of pride. "He's special," she said softly. When the tests were complete, Dr. Hart sat down with Lily in her office. "It'll take some time to analyze the results," she said. "But I want you to know that I'm here to support you, no matter what we find." "Thank you," Lily said sincerely. "I just want to understand." "For him," Dr. Hart nodded. "You're doing an amazing job, Lily. Oliver is lucky to have you." Over the next few weeks, Lily tried to go about her daily life while waiting for the results. She spent her days caring for Oliver, dodging prying eyes, and leaning on Karen and Emma for support. But the questions lingered in the back of her mind, growing louder with each passing day. One evening, as she rocked Oliver to sleep, her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Hart. "Hi Lily, the results are ready. Can you come by tomorrow to discuss them?" Lily stared at the screen, her heart racing. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. She texted back a quick confirmation and set the phone down, her hands trembling. "Whatever it is," she whispered to Oliver, "we'll face it together." The drive to Dr. Hart's research facility the next morning was quiet, the hum of the car engine the only sound. Oliver sat in his car seat, his wide eyes staring out the window as the scenery blurred past. Lily glanced at him in the rearview mirror, her chest tightening with a mix of anxiety and determination. She parked in the lot and took a moment to collect herself before stepping out of the car. Holding Oliver close, she walked through the sleek glass doors and was greeted by Dr. Hart, who seemed calm yet focused. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Hart said, offering a reassuring smile. "Let's head to my office. I have the results ready." Lily nodded, her palms damp with sweat as she followed the researcher down the pristine hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last, and her thoughts raced with possibilities. What would the tests reveal? Would there be answers, or only more questions? Dr. Hart gestured for Lily to sit in a comfortable chair across from her desk. Oliver cooed softly in Lily's arms, his ears twitching at the faint sound of voices echoing in the hallway. Lily kissed the top of his head, drawing strength from his presence. Dr. Hart opened a folder and glanced at its contents before speaking. "First, I want to thank you again for trusting me with this," she began. "I know how difficult it must be to put your faith in someone you don't know well." Lily nodded silently, her heart pounding in her chest. "The tests confirmed what we suspected," Dr. Hart continued. "Oliver's genetic makeup is unique. He has an anomaly in his DNA, a mutation, if you will, that appears to have influenced his physical development and sensory abilities." Lily's grip on Oliver tightened. "What does that mean? Is he sick?" Dr. Hart quickly shook her head. "No, not at all. Oliver is healthy. In fact, his senses and cognitive abilities are far more advanced than those of a typical child his age. This mutation doesn't appear to be harmful, it's simply different." Lily exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "So he's okay?" "Yes," Dr. Hart said with a reassuring smile. "But his condition is extraordinarily rare. I've never seen anything like it before. It's possible that this mutation occurred spontaneously during your pregnancy, though we can't say for certain what triggered it." Lily frowned, her mind racing. "Could it have been something I did? Something I ate? Or something I was exposed to?" "It's unlikely," Dr. Hart replied. "Mutations like this are often random. There's no reason to believe you caused this." Dr. Hart went on to explain that Oliver's heightened sensory abilities were a direct result of his unique DNA. His acute hearing, advanced motor skills, and sharp cognitive responses were all linked to his condition. "Oliver's development will likely continue to be atypical," Dr. Hart said. "But that's not a bad thing. It just means he'll have strengths and challenges that are different from those of other children." Lily nodded, absorbing the information. "What about his appearance?" she asked hesitantly. "The fur, the ears, the paws. Will that change as he grows?" "It's hard to say," Dr. Hart admitted. "His physical traits are tied to his genetic mutation, so they're likely to remain. But it's also possible that they'll evolve over time. We'll need to monitor his development to understand more." Lily glanced down at Oliver, who was staring up at her with his big, curious eyes. "He's perfect the way he is," she said softly. "I don't care if he looks different." Dr. Hart smiled. "And that's what matters most. He's lucky to have a mother who loves him unconditionally." As Lily drove home, her emotions were a whirlwind. Relief that Oliver was healthy, fear of what the future might hold, and a deep sense of gratitude for her son's uniqueness. She had always known he was special, but now she had a better understanding of why. When she walked through the front door, Karen was waiting anxiously in the living room. "Well?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. "What did she say?" Lily sat down beside her mother, cradling Oliver in her arms. "He's healthy," she said, her voice steady. "Dr. Hart said his DNA has a rare mutation that caused his features and abilities. But it's not harmful." Karen let out a sigh of relief. "Thank God. I was so worried." "Me too," Lily admitted. "But now we know. And that's all that matters." Karen reached out and touched Oliver's soft fur. "He really is special, isn't he?" "He is," Lily said, smiling down at her son. "And I wouldn't change a thing about him." The following weeks were a mixture of challenges and small victories. Armed with the knowledge Dr. Hart had provided, Lily felt more confident in her ability to care for Oliver and advocate for his needs. She began to notice even more of his unique traits. His quick reflexes, his uncanny ability to sense emotions, and his insatiable curiosity about the world around him. But the judgment from the town didn't go away. If anything, it grew more intense. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by ignorance and fear. Some people speculated that Oliver's condition was the result of a curse or experiment gone wrong. Others whispered about unnatural forces and urged Lily to leave town. One day, as Lily walked through the park with Oliver, she overheard a group of parents talking. "She should have moved away by now," one woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. "It's not right, parading that thing around like it's normal." Lily's cheeks burned with anger, but she kept walking, refusing to let their words affect her. Oliver, sensing her tension, nuzzled against her chest, and she took a deep breath to calm herself. That evening, as she sat on the couch with Karen, Lily voiced her frustrations. "I'm so tired of the way people treat us," she said, tears welling in her eyes. They act like Oliver is some kind of monster. Karen placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. People fear what they don't understand, she said gently. But you've shown so much strength, Lily. You're proving that love is stronger than their ignorance. Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. I just want him to have a normal life. He will, Karen said firmly. Because he has you. And you're the best thing that's ever happened to him. Despite the negativity from the town, Lily began to find small pockets of support. Emma remained her steadfast ally, always ready to offer a kind word or a listening ear. And slowly, a few other parents began to approach Lily with words of encouragement. One afternoon, as Lily sat in the park with Oliver, a woman named Rachel approached her. She had 2 young children with her, both of whom were playing nearby. Hi, Rachel said, her tone warm but hesitant. I just wanted to say, I think you're incredibly brave. Lily blinked, surprised. Thank you, she said. That means a lot. Rachel smiled. Your son is beautiful, and I can see how much you love him. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Tears pricked Lily's eyes, but she managed to smile. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Lily watched Rachel walk away, a sense of hope blossomed in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't as cruel as it seemed. And maybe Oliver's uniqueness would one day be seen as a gift, not a burden. For now, she would continue to fight for him, to protect him, love him, and show the world that he was more than his appearance. He was her son, and he was perfect. Days turned into weeks, and Lily slowly adjusted to her new normal. She grew more confident in her role as Oliver's mother, fiercely protective of him while also encouraging his curiosity about the world. Each milestone he reached was a testament to his resilience, his unique traits making him all the more extraordinary. Oliver's heightened senses continued to amaze Lily. His ability to pick up on even the smallest sounds or changes in his surroundings seemed almost superhuman. One day, as they sat in the backyard, Oliver's ears twitched, and he turned his head toward the woods behind their house. What is it, Ollie? Lily asked, following his gaze. Oliver cooed softly and reached out with his tiny paw, as though pointing toward the trees. Moments later, a rustling sound emerged, and a deer stepped cautiously into view. Lily's jaw dropped in astonishment. Oliver had sensed the deer before it was even visible. You're incredible, she whispered, stroking his fur. There's so much about you that I'll never fully understand, but I'll always love you for exactly who you are. The more time Lily spent with Oliver, the more she realized how deeply connected they were. He seemed to understand her emotions on an intuitive level, comforting her when she was upset and sharing in her joy during happier moments. It was as though their bond went beyond words, a connection that transcended the ordinary. But while their relationship thrived, the outside world remained a constant source of tension. The townspeople's judgment hadn't waned, and every trip to the grocery store or park felt like a gauntlet of stares and whispers. Lily did her best to ignore them, but some days were harder than others. One afternoon, as she walked through town with Oliver in his stroller, a man approached her. He was tall and wiry, his expression a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Is it true what they're saying about your kid? He asked bluntly. That he's some kind of experiment? Lily's jaw tightened, and she resisted the urge to snap back. My son is a healthy, happy baby, she said firmly. That's all you need to know. The man sneered. Healthy? He doesn't look healthy to me. He looks like something that shouldn't exist. Lily's heart pounded with anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. He exists and he's loved, she said, her voice steady. That's more than I can say for you. She turned on her heel and walked away, her hands trembling on the stroller's handle. Oliver cooed softly, as though sensing her distress, and she took a deep breath to steady herself. You're worth it, she whispered to him. Every stare, every comment, they don't matter. You're worth it. The incident left Lily shaken but more determined than ever to protect Oliver from the world's cruelty. She decided to lean on her support system, reaching out to Emma and Rachel for advice and encouragement. One evening, as they sat around Emma's kitchen table, Lily opened up about her fears. I don't know how to prepare him for what's out there, she admitted. The world isn't kind to people who are different. Emma reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand. "You're already doing everything you can," she said. "You're showing him love and teaching him to be strong. That's all any parent can do." Rachel nodded. "And you're not alone, Lily. There are people who care about you and Oliver, who see how special he is. Don't forget that." Lily felt a flicker of hope. "Thank you," she said softly. "It means a lot to know I'm not alone." Despite the challenges, Lily found solace in the small moments she shared with Oliver. His laughter, his curious gaze, the way his tiny paw wrapped around her finger, all of it reminded her of the beauty in their lives. She began to document their days in a journal, capturing every milestone and memory. Today, Oliver discovered the sound of birds chirping, she wrote one afternoon. He listened so intently, his ears twitching with every note. "It's like he's already connected to the world in a way I'll never fully understand." The journal became a source of comfort, a reminder of the joy that outweighed the pain. One day, Lily received an unexpected call from Dr. Hart. "I've been thinking about Oliver," the researcher said, her tone thoughtful. "And I'd like to propose something, if you're open to it." "What is it?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued. "There's a conference coming up," Dr. Hart explained. "It's focused on rare genetic conditions and the importance of inclusion in medical research. I think Oliver's story could inspire a lot of people. But only if you're comfortable sharing it." Lily hesitated. The idea of putting Oliver in the spotlight made her uneasy, but she also saw the potential for good. If their story could help others understand and accept differences, maybe it was worth considering. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Take your time," Dr. Hart replied. "There's no pressure. Just know that you and Oliver have already made a difference in my life." Lily spent the next few days weighing the decision. She talked it over with Karen, Emma, and Rachel, each of whom offered their support. "I think it's a brave thing to do," Rachel said. "Sharing your story could change how people see Oliver and others like him." Karen nodded. "But only do it if you're ready, sweetheart. This is your choice." Lily looked at Oliver, who was playing with a soft toy on the floor. His fur gleamed in the sunlight, and his eyes sparkled with curiosity. She knew what she had to do. When the day of the conference arrived, Lily felt a mix of nerves and determination. She stood backstage, holding Oliver close as Dr. Hart introduced them to the audience. "Today, we have a very special guest," Dr. Hart said, her voice warm and confident. "Lily Clark and her son, Oliver, have a story that challenges us to rethink our perceptions of difference and embrace the beauty of uniqueness." The audience applauded, and Lily took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. Oliver cooed softly in her arms, his ears twitching at the sound of the crowd. "Hi," Lily began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My name is Lily, and this is my son, Oliver. He's the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me." She went on to share their journey, the challenges, the judgment, and the moments of joy that made it all worthwhile. She spoke about Oliver's unique traits, his extraordinary abilities, and the unbreakable bond they shared. "Oliver may look different," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But he's healthy, he's happy, and he's loved. And that's all that should matter." The room was silent for a moment before erupting into applause. Lily felt tears welling in her eyes as she looked down at Oliver, who gazed back at her with his wide, trusting eyes. After the conference, several attendees approached Lily to thank her for sharing her story. Some were parents of children with rare conditions, while others were researchers inspired by her courage. "You've given us so much hope," one woman said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for being so brave." Lily smiled, her heart full. "Thank you for listening." As she walked out of the conference hall, Oliver nestled against her chest. Lily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She knew their journey was far from over, but for the first time, she felt like they were truly moving forward. The aftermath of the conference brought an unexpected wave of positivity into Lily and Oliver's lives. The story they had shared with the world sparked conversations about inclusion, acceptance, and the beauty of diversity. For the first time, Lily felt like the tide was turning, not just in her small town, but in how people everywhere viewed Oliver and children like him. Dr. Hart reached out the following week with updates. The response to the conference has been overwhelming, she said during a phone call. I've received dozens of messages from parents, researchers, and advocates who were deeply moved by your story. Some even want to collaborate on initiatives to promote acceptance and support for children with unique conditions. Lily listened, her heart swelling with pride. I'm glad, she said softly. I just want Oliver to grow up in a world that sees him for who he is, not for how he looks. And you're helping create that world, Dr. Hart replied. This is just the beginning. Back in Riverview, Lily noticed subtle changes in how people treated her and Oliver. While some of the old stares and whispers persisted, others began to approach her with kindness and curiosity rather than judgment. Parents who had once avoided her in the park now smiled and said hello, and a few even struck up conversations. One afternoon, Rachel joined Lily at the playground, where Oliver was crawling on the grass, his tiny paws gripping the earth as he explored. Have you noticed? Rachel asked, nodding toward a group of parents nearby. They're not whispering anymore. They're watching him with interest, not fear. Lily glanced over and saw the parents smiling as they watched Oliver. A wave of relief washed over her. It's a start, she said, her voice tinged with hope. Maybe people are finally seeing him for the amazing little boy he is. Rachel smiled. That's because of you. You've shown them that he's not something to fear. He's someone to love. As Oliver grew, his unique abilities continued to amaze Lily and those around him. By the time he was a year old, he could mimic sounds with startling accuracy, picking up on birdsong, the hum of a car engine, or even the rhythm of a song playing on the radio. His curiosity seemed boundless, and he had a way of drawing people in with his infectious laughter and bright, intelligent eyes. One day, as Lily sat with Oliver in the yard, a neighbor named Mrs. Bennett approached. She was an older woman who had lived in Riverview for decades and was known for her no-nonsense demeanor. Lily, she said, her voice gruff but not unkind. I wanted to say something. Lily braced herself, unsure of what to expect. Yes? I've been watching you and that boy of yours, Mrs. Bennett continued. And I have to say, you've got a strength I admire. You didn't let this town's small minds get to you. And that's not easy to do. Lily blinked, surprised. Thank you, she said, her voice soft. Mrs. Bennett nodded, her gaze shifting to Oliver, who was playing with a patch of wildflowers. He's a special one, that boy. Don't ever let anyone make you think otherwise. Lily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. I won't. As Oliver's second birthday approached, Lily decided to throw a small party to celebrate. She invited Emma, Rachel, and a handful of other parents who had shown kindness and support over the past year. It was a modest gathering in their backyard, with balloons, streamers, and a homemade cake decorated with little animal figurines. Oliver was the star of the day, his laughter filling the air as he played with the other children. For Lily, it was a moment of pure joy, a reminder that, despite the challenges they had faced, their little family was surrounded by love. Karen watched from the sidelines, her eyes glistening with tears. You've done an incredible job, Lily, she said as she hugged her daughter. Look at him. He's so happy. Lily smiled, her gaze fixed on Oliver as he toddled around the yard, his furry ears twitching with delight. He's my whole world, she said. And I'd do it all over again for him. The party was a turning point for Lily. It showed her that, while the world wasn't perfect, it was full of people willing to open their hearts and minds. She began to feel more comfortable taking Oliver out in public, confident in her ability to handle whatever challenges came their way. One day, as they walked through the town square, a little girl approached them, her eyes wide with curiosity. Can I pet him? She asked, pointing to Oliver. Lily chuckled. He's not a pet, sweetheart. He's my son. The girl tilted her head, studying Oliver for a moment. Then she smiled. He's cute. Thank you, Lily said, her heart swelling with pride. Moments like these reminded Lily that the world was changing, slowly but surely. And she was determined to be a part of that change, not just for Oliver but for every child who was different. As the years went by, Oliver continued to thrive. His intelligence, kindness, and unique abilities made him a beloved figure in the community. People who had once judged him now saw him as an inspiration, a reminder that differences should be celebrated, not feared. Lily, too, found a sense of purpose in their journey. She began speaking at events and conferences, sharing their story to raise awareness and promote acceptance. Her once quiet voice had become a powerful force for change, and she was determined to use it for good. One evening, as Lily tucked Oliver into bed, he looked up at her with his wide, sparkling eyes. "Mama?" he said, his voice soft and sweet. "Yes, baby," she replied, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "I love you," he said, his tiny paw reaching for her hand. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she leaned down to kiss his forehead. "I love you too, Ollie. More than anything in the world." As she sat by his bedside, watching him drift off to sleep, Lily thought about the journey they had been on. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt. Oliver had taught her more about love, resilience, and the beauty of life than she had ever thought possible. Their story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more triumphs, and more lessons to learn. But Lily knew one thing for certain: together, they could face anything. As the moonlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow over the room, Lily whispered a silent promise to her son. "You'll never be alone, Oliver. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." And with that, she kissed him one last time and turned off the light, ready to face whatever the future held.